Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Tira Vanachari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vannachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Thank you everyone for your kind participation. So if you'd like to repeat after me, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading from chapter 6, text 42. Chapter 6 is entitled Dhyana Yoga. So I'll recite the Sanskrit and we'll recite it line by line. And if you like, you can repeat after. Athava yoginameva kula bhavati dhimatam etadhi durlabat etadhi durlabataram etadhi durlabataram loke janma yadidrisham athava yoginameva kule bhavati dhimatam etadhi durlabataram loke janma yadidrisham athava yoginameva kule bhavati dhimatam etadhi durlabataram loke janma yadidrisham. So if anyone would like to try, we can move on to the translation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Or if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly such a birth is rare in this world. Purport. Birth in a family of yogis or transcendentalists, those with great wisdom, is praised herein because the child born in such a family receives a spiritual impetus from the very beginning of his life. It is especially the case in the Acharya or Goswami families. Such families are very learned and devoted by tradition and training, and thus they become spiritual masters. In India, there are many such Acharya families, but they have now degenerated due to insufficient education and training. By the grace of the Lord, there are still families that foster transcendentalists generation after generation. It is certainly very fortunate to take birth in such families. Fortunately, both our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and our humble self had the opportunity to take birth in such families. By the grace of the Lord, and both of us were trained in the devotional service of the Lord from the very beginning of our lives. Later on, we met by the order of the transcendental system. So before we begin, we'll just recite some invocation prayers. It's nothing suspicious, just to invoke some auspiciousness. If you know the prayers, you can repeat. You can join along with me. Essentially, we're calling out to our teachers and the Supreme Lord. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we're reading from chapter 6. Before we begin, I would humbly like to request the blessings of all the devotees present here today, especially my seniors like Srinivas Prabhu, that I may be able to say something of value and according to what is here in the Bhagavad Gita. So here, this chapter 6, Krishna proposes a type of yoga, a system of yoga practice. And that system of yoga practice, Arjun considers that this is not realistic for me. Krishna describes that one has to sit in a secluded place and with their eyelids half closed and meditate for long periods of time. And the mind has to be completely focused. Arjun tells Krishna, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balabhadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayuriva suduskaram, that this mind is very turbulent. It is very difficult to control. It's more difficult to control than the wind. And then Krishna responds that yes, it is difficult. It is difficult to control, but it can be done. It's not impossible. Krishna acknowledges Arjun's concern, but at the same time he proposes a solution. That yes, this mind is difficult to control. It goes here and there without any consideration of what we want it to do. And Krishna says, yes, this can be done. How can it be done? By suitable practice and detachment. So thereafter, Arjun, he asked Krishna another question. He asked Krishna that it may so happen that someone embarks on the spiritual journey, but they're not able to complete their journey for whatever reason. What happens to them? Because on one side, they've kind of like left their kind of material inclinations, or trying to leave their material inclinations, material world. And on the other side, they're trying to work their way towards spiritual life. So it's like, for example, if you want to take a train from London to, say, Manchester, and here Arjun's doubt is the unsuccessful yogi, someone who hasn't completed the journey. So someone may ask that, okay, if I'm, like in an example, if I'm traveling from London to Manchester, what if I'm unsuccessful in completing that journey? What if I don't actually arrive at Manchester? What if the train breaks down halfway through? That means I'm not in London, nor am I in Manchester. So then, where am I? Someone could argue I'm in the middle of nowhere. I wasn't able to make the most of what I left behind, and I didn't get what I was working towards. So this is Arjuna's doubt. Arjuna says, O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? And so, yeah, we may take up to something. We may endeavor with determination. But in the case of spiritual life, Arjuna is asking, what happens if I'm not successful? And then what Krishna goes on to describe is, don't worry. It's okay. Don't worry. Because it's not like you failed. If your train from London to Manchester breaks down halfway through, you're still halfway through. You've still gone a certain distance. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki. And therefore, even in that journey, we have still gone some distance. We've still gone some distance. And therefore, when the train ever does get repaired, we can continue our journey. No problem. When the train is repaired, we can continue. Krishna also says, Neha Bikramanashosti Pratyavayona Vidyate Svalpapyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bayat. That in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. So whatever progress or advancement we make in spiritual life, that is to one's eternal benefit. It is like an investment savings account. You have many different types of savings accounts. You have cash ISAs, instant ISAs, regular savers. You have a 1-year fix, 5-year fix. Adding spiritual credits to your bank account is like putting money into an infinite number of years fixed bank account. You can only put money in. You can't take money out. And therefore, whatever spiritual activities we do, that will always remain to our eternal benefit. There is no loss. There is absolutely no loss. So then, what happens to such a person who in this life isn't able to complete their journey? Now, the first thing is, end of this life does not mean end of the book. End of this life means end of a chapter. And what happens at the end of one chapter? You usually get one blank page, and then the next chapter starts. And therefore, what we leave off at the end of one chapter is continued at the beginning of the next chapter. Because the soul, which is our true identity, is eternal. The soul is eternal. It is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvato yam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. That this soul it does not come into being. It has not and will not come into being. There is no birth or death at any time for this soul. It is unborn, eternal, primeval, ever existing. And when this body is slain, when this body ceases to function, which we call death, that is not the termination of one's identity. That is simply one's mechanism for exhibiting activities has proved faulty. But the individual being is still very much so. The other example given in the Bhagavad Gita is Vachamsi jirnani yatha vihayam navani grinati naroparani tatha sharirani navani grinati naroparani. I may have got that wrong, but the essence of the verse is that just as someone who at the end of the day discards their old clothes, which are now dirty or torn or used, at the end of the day they discard such clothes, put them in the washing machine, and at the beginning of a new day they get fresh clothes. In the same way that when this body is old, is no longer functioning, liver problem, back problem, kidney problem, ear problem, eyesight problem, so many problems, and the body is no longer functioning, then the soul will give up that body. But in giving up that body, the soul will then take on a new body, one that it can better utilize, perform activities and function. And so this soul is eternal. And therefore, at the end of this life, we simply continue with whatever we left off with, especially in the sense of spiritual advancement. So if we, for the sake of example, attribute a numeric value to spiritual advancement, if someone, say, has made 10% advancement in spirituality in this lifetime, in their next life they'll start off with 11%. They'll simply continue with where they from where they left off. So now, here, Krishna is specifically answering Arjun's question, what is the exact position of such a person? In the previous verse, it's mentioned, the unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. So such a person who has performed spiritual life, there is a good destination ahead of them, even if they are unsuccessful. What is this destination? Destination of being in an environment where they can further cultivate their Krishna consciousness and spirituality. In this verse specifically, it is mentioned that someone who is unsuccessful after a long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists. So those who are spiritual, those who are spiritually inclined. And here it's mentioned that such births are very rare. Such births are very rare. Now, firstly, one may ask, if they've been engaged in spiritual life for such a long period of time, how is it that they're unsuccessful? How is it that they did not reach the goal? Because we may also have that fear. What happens if I don't reach the intended goal of my activities? Now, in one sense, we have the answer here that even if you don't reach your goal, no problem. You get an extra life. Like, in video games, sometimes you try and make your way to the top and defeat the guy who's supposed to be at the top, but you don't get past him. But it's fine. You got an extra life. No problem. You get an extra chance. But why does that happen in the first place? That can happen for multiple reasons, but essentially, when we are cultivating spiritual life, we are going from one sort of mentality to a completely different type of mentality. We're going from a completely selfish mentality to a completely selfless mentality. Instead of thinking just about I, me, mine, how I can enjoy my body, we're trying to completely shift that mentality in how one can serve the Supreme Lord. And this scale, of course, is not discrete, it's continuous. And so we may not always come to that complete point of selflessness. And because it's continuous, it means that maybe, okay, yeah, I'll do something selfless. I'll give you something, but also there's something in it for me. One for me, one for you. Or maybe even develop our selflessness further. Okay, 5 for you, 1 for me. Maybe even 10 for you, 2 for me. And therefore, as long as there is some element of selfishness in our hearts, then we won't have unlocked our true potential. And that is described here as unsuccessful. In one sense of the term, it's not really unsuccessful. It's only unsuccessful if you put a deadline on it. But really, this verse is also describing, and other parts of the Gita are describing, how there isn't really a deadline. But at the same time, we should be careful not to become complacent. Now, we described that the identity of the living entity is that of spirit soul. So that spirit soul is completely different to this body that we perceive. this body is made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether, all these types of elements. Another deeper level of the body is the subtle body, which consists of the mind, intelligence, and false ego. And the soul is completely different to these elements. But the soul can take various types of bodies. It's described in the Padma Puran that there are 8.4 million types of species. And so the soul can transmigrate through many of these different types of species. And therefore it is described that a human form of life is actually quite rare. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj, a great child saint, prays, Kaumaram acharet pragyo dharman bhagavataniha durlabam manusham janma tadapya dhruvamarthadam. That this human form of life is very, very rare. Even though there are so many miseries that pertain to this body, like the miseries that pertain to this body are easily perceivable by everyone. Sometimes we feel too hot and we're sweating. Sometimes we feel too cold and we're shivering. Just when we get the right temperature, it's time to go to work, but it's too cold outside. And that's just one example. But if we look in our lives, then there's so much discomfort that can be presented to us at any time. And these miseries are just day-to-day miseries. And what about the other types of miseries that we don't see an immediate effect? Miseries of old age, for example. I myself have grandparents, and they're fairly old, in their 80s. And I can see that this is a very, very difficult life. This is a very difficult life. Mobility reduces. They're not able to function as well as they could before. They may want to do things, but they're unable to because of physical capacity and capabilities. And so if we look at it deeply, we can really see that there are many difficulties that come along in life. But Prahlad Maharaj, the child saint, says, Tadapya dhruvamarthadam, that this body is still of great value. It is not worthless but very meaningful. The reason why it is very meaningful is because only humans can inquire. Only humans can ask questions. Only humans can doubt. Animals cannot doubt. If you have, any animal, anyone have any examples of an animal? You can just shout one animal out, or you can just use that example. No, just any animal. Dog. Okay, so let's take an example of a dog. If you have a dog and for whatever reason, if the dog is going through some difficulties, if someone is being harsh to the dog in an unfair and cruel way, sometimes you see that there may be stray dogs and people kind of just push them to the side. Does the dog have the ability to inquire, hey, look, what are you doing? What you're doing is not fair. Does it have that ability? It can't say anything. The max it can do is bark. But humans have a special ability that is unique. We can ask questions, we can inquire. And spiritual life begins with this inquiry. The Vedanta Sutras describe, the first sutra mentions Athato Brahma Jigyasa, that first we should inquire unto the absolute truth. And that's even how the Bhagavad Gita starts. Arjuna is doubting. Arjuna is doubting, what should he do? He comes up with so many reasons as to why he shouldn't fight, and he's completely confused. And he asks Krishna, look, help me. I don't know what to do. And in that way, Arjuna presents Krishna questions, and Krishna then goes on to answer. Really, Bhagavad Gita is just a conversation of questions and answers. And therefore, this human life is very valuable because we can inquire, because we can ask questions. Now, the purpose of inquiring is to understand why we are here, what is our purpose, why are we going through these various difficulties in life. Why do these troubles come to me? I don't want to experience difficult times. I don't want to experience stress. But I still feel sometimes stressed. Why is it that I'm feeling something I don't want? I don't want it. I want to be peaceful. I want to be calm. But that doesn't happen sometimes. Why is it that I'm not able to fulfill my wishes? Why is it that sometimes, despite getting so many things I'd wanted, I still may feel a little unsatisfied? There are examples of famous people who some may consider very successful. Some singers or boxers or sportsmen. And sometimes we've seen books about, as in their biographies or autobiographies, about how despite having so many things that one may attribute to success, they still do not feel contentment and satisfaction in their hearts. And why is that so? And the reason is that happiness doesn't come externally. Happiness rather is something like an internal affair. Happiness is something that we can, that is not really dependent so much on our externals, but rather on the state of our consciousness. How we perceive happiness and sadness is very much dependent on the state of our consciousness. For example, there was once, and this is not a true story as far as I know, a plane. And that plane was flying. During the course of that plane, the plane crashed. During that plane crash, there was one passenger who broke an arm. Everyone else in that plane was completely fine. But only this one person broke an arm. So that one person is thinking, why me? I'm so unfortunate, I'm so unlucky, I'm so sad. I've lost an arm. In another situation, same person, same flight, they're flying, the plane somehow or other crashes. Everyone on the plane dies, but this person loses an arm. That person will think, I'm so fortunate, I'm still alive. I'm so lucky, I'm so happy I still have life. So this example illustrates how it is our consciousness, our vision that can bring us happiness, how we look at things. And the reason why birth in the family of transcendentalists is very much appreciated in this verse or glorified in this verse is because the function of elevating one's consciousness is automatically provided in such an environment where spirituality is at the forefront of all the activities in such a household. And therefore, such a birth is also very rare. So I think we'll end here. If anyone has any questions, comments, corrections. Yes, Austin. Yeah. So, in regards to like our consciousness at the end of this life, Krishna mentions Antakale Chamameva Smaran Mukta Kalevaram Ya Prayati Samadbhavam Yati Nastarta Samshaya. That if one is thinking of Krishna at the time of death, then one will go to Krishna. And of that there is no doubt. Then Krishna goes on to say, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajantyante kalevram tam tameva iti kauntaya sadatad bhava bhavita. That whatever consciousness one is in at the end of one's life, that state he will attain to in his next life. Now, what consciousness we have at the end of our life is not just a matter of something of the spur of the moment. Rather, it's a culmination of what we have cultivated and accumulated throughout our lives. And therefore, one cannot artificially impose a thought at the end of their life, because when leaving the body, one experiences great trauma. Because such leaving of the body is very uncomfortable. The Garud Puran describes that it is as painful as many, many scorpions biting at the same time. With that being said, chanting the holy name is so incredibly powerful. It's described in the 6th canto. What is that verse? There is one verse anyway which says that if one chants the holy name when accidentally slipping and falling over, or getting bitten and dying, or falling over and breaking the bones in the skull, and they die in that way, but they chant the holy name, they will not go to hell. They will not be degraded. And so, yes, the potency of the holy name is there. But also, there is a quality to such utterance. There is an example in the 6th canto of Ajamil. He chanted the holy name at the end of his life, 4 syllables, Narayana. And through that, he was able to then go on to perfect his life. But he chanted such names offenselessly. There are 10 offenses that can be committed, but he chanted offenselessly. And therefore he was able to make progress in spiritual life. He was offered a second chance. But it's not something that can be artificially imposed. One can't think that, yeah, I'm just going to chant for a little bit and commit suicide and I'll go back to the spiritual world. It's not how it works. Because at the time of leaving the body, because there's intense trauma, our thoughts will go immediately to what consciousness we've been cultivating throughout our lives. Like that. So I hope that answers your question. But I think now it's time for Arti. So I'd kindly like to request if everyone can stand up. We'll be singing the Gaura Arti song, which is on the board over there. And it's usually sung in a call and response fashion. So we encourage everyone to come and participate. There'll also be some Mahaprasadam, which will be served in the reception after the Arti. So we encourage everyone to honor some. Thank you once again for listening and your kind attention. Hare Krishna.
श्री 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 राधा गोकुलानंद की, सीताराम लक्ष्मण हनुमान की, गौर निताय की, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय जय गौरचंदे आरती का शोभा। जानावीता कावाने जगा मनलोबा। दाखिने निताय छान बामे गदाधारा। नीकाते अद्वैता त्रीनि वासा छत्रधारा। नीकाते अशे गोरचान रत्ना सिंहासने उसी अशे आरती कोरेने ब्रह्मा आदि देवगाने। gori chamara dulaya Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Gose Adigaya Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Adigaya Thanka Baje Ganta Baje Baje Karatala Madhura Mrudanga Baje Paramarasala Shankha Baje Ganta Baje Madhur 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 Baje Bahu Je Ranka Baje Madhur 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 Baje Shankha Baje Ranka Baje Madhur 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 Baje Nittai Gora Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nittai Gora Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nittai Gora Hari Bol Bahu Koti Chandra Jini Vadana Ujjwala Bahu Koti Chandra Gala Dese Bana Mala Kore Jalamala Shiva Sukana Radha Preme Gada Gada Bhakati Vinoda Deke Gora Rasampada Shiva Jaya Jaya Gora Chander Arati Ka Shobha Janavi Tatavane Jagamanaloba Gaurangera Rutika Shobha Jagajanamana Gaurangera Rotika janamana loba Nitai Gora Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gora Hari Bol Nitai Gora Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gora Hari Bol Nitai Gora Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gora Hari Bol Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pachatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadra Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadra Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadra Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadra Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadra Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda